Well, Tommy Peoples is a very, very fine Donegal fiddle player who came to Dublin, I think, in the 60s. The first time I heard him was, I thought, 67 or 68, around that time. So I was about 14, and I remember Tommy coming to a session, a Colton session in Clontarf, and I remember he played, and now, I mean, you've got to remember, I'm a 14-year-old, so you're not into the sort of the subtleties of music in any great sense. But I remember my father, who was there that night, saying to me, commenting on Tommy's way of playing the fiddle. He said it was really, really kind of different and very, very powerful. I didn't quite fully appreciate that at that age, but as I got to know Tommy over the years, and I began to realise then that you were dealing with a very, very sort of a special individual fiddle player. And I kind of got to know Tommy, through the lifetime. We weren't particularly close friends by any means, but we played, and we were sort of operating in the same sort of musical kind of orbit for a good many years. Tommy wasn't very talkative, so therefore conversation wasn't always easy. Now, there were times when it was easy, it has to be said, and there were many times when I sat with Tommy and we had great conversations, but there were a lot of times I sat with them and there was no conversation, it has to be said. I think a lot of Tommy's, I think there was a lot of shyness in the way he presented himself. I think he needed to feel comfortable. I think he needed to be able to trust people who were around him. So therefore he didn't put himself forward very much. But once you actually got talking to him and kind of began to realise that we shared a lot of interests. I mean, for example, Tommy was a great fan of Gaelic football, the same as I am, and so we would have conversations about that. But it was the music that kind of is what brought us together. And I remember in the early 70s, being in his company and playing quite a lot with him, at sessions, and we would be on the same gig together in Slattery's and going to Flannachiol. I mean, indeed, I remember having some great fun with Tommy at the Flan. One of the Flans in the Stade, I can't remember which year, but and he could be a very, very funny man at times, and he had his own sort of sense of humour. But having said that, then there was this other very, very kind of intense side that he had, and that first became apparent to me in about 1968. Again, I was around 14, and I was starting to get really interested in the music. And at that time, Colton's Kiltorrier had their headquarters at the top of number 6 Harcourt Street. They had the very top floor. It's two small little offices. And in the main office was where the administration was, where people who did the Chimmery Kjol and people like that. And then there was this other room, which was sort of the beginnings of their archive, which was under the stewardship of Seamus McMahon. And there was another man who used to work with him who was a cartoonist called Martin Forrestal, who was a classic scholar, a scholar in Latin. So it was a kind of a slightly offbeat place. And I used to go there a lot during my school holidays, be hanging around town. I'd go up there, and I used to meet Tommy there. And we'd both be in there, but Tommy would be, I always remember, he'd be very keen to look at the manuscripts. They didn't have a very, very big collection at the time, but he was really, really into it. And he took a particular interest in a book called Cole's Fiddle Tunes. And that was a book, I think, that was published in Chicago. And it was it was sort of a collection of reeds, jigs, hornpipes, strathspeys, but mainly tunes that were kind of in the E-flat, B-flat sort of range. And Tommy took a lot of interest in them, and he used to copy them down. And he goes, so I took note of that, and I'm just thinking about him. That's a kind of a memory I have of Tommy in the very, very early years. So at that stage, and that's suggesting to me that Tommy was very interested in the exploration of music, and that he was really, really serious about it, because these tunes weren't your sort of mainstream Irish traditional tunes. They were kind of on the margin a bit, and he was really interested in exploring that particular territory.